Okay.
Wait.
Hello, I'm Joo PARK, Professor Emeritus of Higher Business School in Seoul, Korea. I will talk about group in two parts. Today,
Cecile?
No. Okay.
Part 1. Is it good or bad? This is table of contents of my talk today. Why does globalization matter these days? There are several reasons. One clear reason is that deglobalization phenomena emerge these days. Because of the political changes, US and China conflicts, climate change, and COVID pandemic these days. For political changes, Trumpian protectionism is very typical one. Trump said, America first, very egoistic zero-sum game, and exclusive reshoring. And there is Brexit as well. US-China conflicts is economic fights for the supreme power hegemony, which will damage global value chain and economy. Climate change is very serious as well, which will lead to the polarization of national wealth. We are currently experiencing very severe COVID pandemic. Lock-ins will create supply chain troubles, and we have to balance economic efficiency and safety of health. Does COVID-19 mean the end for globalization? The key questions of my talk will be as follows. Is globalization ending? If not, what will be the future globalization? What will be the impacts of future globalization on the business and business education? So what is globalization? There are diverse definitions, but all definitions have some common words like expansion, intensification, interconnectivity, spread, interconnectedness, integration, interconnected, integration. Jeffrey Sachs of Columbia University, he defined 7 stages, ages of globalization in chronological view. First is Paleolithic age from 70,000 to 10,000 BC, typified by rising humans. Second age is Neolithic age, 10,000 to 3,000 BC. Diffusion of agriculture is very typical in this age. Equestrian age, 3,000 to 1,000 BC. domestication of horse. Horse is very important animal during the whole globalization ages. Then fourth is classical age, 1000 BC to 1500 AD, where there were emergency of empires, Roman, Han, Macedonia, Persian, Mongol. Fifth is Ocean Age, from 1500 to 1800 AD. Transoceanic trade. Sixth is Industrial Age, 1800 to 2000 AD. There emerged industry and capitalism. And seventh is the digital age in 21st century that we are experiencing now, which will be very high connectivity globally. My definition of globalization is a little different. I try to define in broad sense as a phenomenon that drives the Earth to be one planet. So
recording stopped.
One is globalization of nature. Second is globalization of human. For globalization of nature, what is the first globalized living entity? It may be microbes, fishes, birds, insects, trees, or animals. What is the most globalized and dominant species on Earth?
Recording in progress.
I think it's ants. Its total population is 1,000 trillion. Appeared in 100 million years ago, and they started farming in 50 million years ago. And it exists everywhere on Earth except Antarctica. Their survival secrets is based on communication with about 20 different pheromones and altruism and cooperation culture. And they have strict social order. The lesson from them is the most cooperative creature live and last longer. Then let's think about the globalization. It started from movement of Homo sapiens. In fact, Homo species just moved within Africa about 2 million years ago. But Homo sapiens moved from Africa to Europe and Asia and other continents about 70,000 years ago. Why human moved? There may be several reasons. First may be the sources of food. They search for animals, fishes, vegetables, fruits, roots, and water, or search for better climate, from hot, cold to mild temperature, or territorial disputes. Concept of territoriality appeared, and they may have disputes. Or pure curiosity to outer territory or world. Or perhaps human has globalization DNA. And we have modern globalization from the 20th century. Modern globalization is the process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments worldwide. In academic terms, it was first proposed by French economist Perrault, mondialization in 1960, and Harvard Professor Levitt's globalization article in 1983. So it is rather young terminology. Four basic aspects of globalization was proposed by IMF in 2000. Those are trade and transaction, capital and investment movements, migration and movement of people, dissemination of knowledge. And we see rapid expansion of globalization from the late 20th century up to now. There are hidden causes of modern globalization. Let me talk about economic development of a nation. Most of nations start as a self-sufficient economy like Homo Kingdom. And first, they normally export primary resources, coal, iron ore, oil, wool, and import value-added products. But then they recognize they need to establish domestic industry. To promote domestic industry, first, what they do is protect domestic industry by import duties and tariff barriers with government subsidy and control for the domestic industry as well. When domestic industry became competitive, however, those countries wants to open and globalize the economy because they need large global market. That happens to UK and US as well. In UK, textile industry, they protected textile industry in late 19th century. In US, they protected steel industry in early 20th century. But once those industry became competitive, both UK and US declared globalization for free trade, markets, finance, intellectual property, and set up global institutions and rules like UN, World Bank, WTO. There are several dimensions of globalization: economic globalization, political globalization, environmental globalization, cultural globalization. For economic globalization, globalization of production, and globalization of markets, that's for free markets without barriers. International policies and agreements and institutions like GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, WTO, and many FTAs. Globalization of finance means open financial market. There are enablers of globalizations like international standards and innovations, ISO standards, and containerization is very important innovation for globalization. It is not only container, but container trailer, container train, container ship, container port, and all containerization systems. And there are economic integrations, like European Union. Let me talk about neoliberalism, which is very important ideology of free market economy for globalization. There was Washington Consensus, IMF, World Bank, US Department of Treasury for free trade, floating exchange rates, free markets, macroeconomic stability. And they have 10 principles imposed to developing countries mostly. And they established structural adjustment program forcefully implemented by the World Bank and IMF to many developing countries defaulted. That means if you need money from us, you should follow our policy, such as open markets to capitalism, privatize public industry, allow free trade, cut social services like healthcare, education, and allow free movement of giant multinational corporations. Its rationale was global win-win by comparative advantage by David Ricardo in 1817. But is it win-win? Is it a promise of globalization? This figure shows world GDP per capita. Whole world was growing along the globalization, but poor countries, even the poor countries are growing, but gap is widening, as you can see, between the Western offshores and sub-Saharan Africa. Political globalization, the growth of worldwide political system, declining importance of nation states, and increasing importance of corporations, rising non-governmental organizations, social movement organizations, and global governance institutions like UN, World Bank, IMF, WTO. There is prevalence of democracy and globalization of democracy. In Eastern Europe, the Arab Spring, India, South Korea, Rwanda. But what is the genuine democracy? Is it people power? Even North Korea calls itself Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Environmental globalization. We have environmental crisis, greenhouse gas emissions, which will cause global warming and climate change, decreased biodiversity by deforestation, ocean acidification, habitat loss and destruction. Pollution is very severe as well. Air, soils, freshwater, oceans by industrial chemicals, plastics, waste flows. Currently, we have great disease, the pandemic disease, which is threat of the whole human society. Pathogens are globalized, and we have COVID-19 as one of those. But can this environmental globalization be solved by capital globalization, which pursues only economic wealth? Most of us know that we need harmonizing multi-objective, not only wealth. And some people propose sustainable development, which means to meet the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, and set up sustainable development goals. It is not possible, impossible by any single entity or country or corporation. So global cooperation is imperative for this environmental crisis. Cultural globalization is transmission of ideas, meanings, beliefs, and values around the world. There are religion, language, art, food, and travel, and others. We now have very globalized religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. For language, lingua franca is English, for sure. But what is the most widely used language on earth now? Is it Chinese? Well, I think it's broken English. For music, there are classical, Western music, Eastern music, pop songs, jazz, ballad. Beatles, Michael Jackson, BTS, Amalia Rodriguez. I put Amalia here because I like Amalia's father. Movie, drama, Hollywood, Bollywood, Sinowood, K-music, and food. Very globalized drink, coffee, and tea, Coca-Cola, and others. And there are many UNESCO heritage sites and beautiful scenery sites and local festivals. Can you recognize these young boys? They are Beatles when they studied in Liverpool in 1960. Who are they? Appeared on Time magazine. They are Korean idol group, BTS. Very famous and popular globally. So after all, is globalization good or bad? In theory, it is good. It enhances the cooperation spirit, help others, global with, and towards economic co-prosperity and reduced extreme poverty. But in practice, it's bad. I think it's too much competitiveness driven. And there's no secured war like Wall in Wall Street in old New York, New Amsterdam time. And widening inequality, homogenization dilemma. It hurts diversity. Is diversity good or bad? It should be good because diversity is a very important source of human survival. But why this confusion and dilemma on globalization? Because we don't have ideal globalization yet. Is it Americanization, Sinification, or Europeanization? In part 2, I will continue to discuss what will be the future globalization, what will be the impact of COVID pandemic to globalization, what will be the impacts of future globalization on business, what will be the impacts of future globalization on business education. So I hope to see you in November during 2021 Eduniversal World Convention. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Sunju, for this presentation.
Thank you, Joo PARK.
Thank you very much.
We have one question from Michael Wood. He would like to know if it's a question for you, Sunju. Could the discovery and use of fire also be important for human development?
Yes. I skipped those because of the time limitation. I had about 1 hour long presentation, but I cut off many parts. Still, it's over 20 minutes, right, Cecile?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay. It's perfect.
It was an easy question, Sunjo, but I think it then takes us to the role of heat and energy in transforming minerals, constructing society, ships, rockets, planes. It's the fire and globalization seem fire as energy.
Yes,
it's important. Yes. We transport so much energy, and that contributes to climate change issues. How do we I guess improve the control and use of energy?
I will update and talk a little about the energy issue in part 2.
I will be there.
Okay.
Thank you, Sunju. Dear participants, if you have any questions, please kindly use the raise hand feature on the application. Or if you have any comments, don't hesitate to participate in the discussion. Or you can write your question in the chat.
I used broken English, so did you understand everything?
Yes.
Perfectly, yeah.
Yes.
So, Sunju, I have another question.
Okay.
You mentioned one man, Zheng in 1405. Could you tell us about him? I recognize the European explorers. Zheng He. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What can you tell us about him or her?
Is the Admiral in Ming Dynasty, and he studied the ocean navigation almost 100 years ago, before the Columbus. And he visited many places up to Africa. 100 years before Columbus. Can you imagine? But they had new king. Actually, the emperor of Ming Dynasty strongly supported Admiral Zheng He. But later, after his death, his son and grandson was little not very positive about spending money because Chinese exploration at first was not the colonization, or not for colonization, or not for the gold or any other valuables, but it was a more diplomatic voyage. And they wanted to they promote the Ming Dynasty to the world.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sunjo.
So is it recorded?
Yes.
And send to the link to other people?
Yes. It's what we are going to do, to send to all the, because we had a lot of registered people, but not everybody is here now in the live moment. So we will send the link to all the participants and people that was registered for the session.
Okay, good.
Some reactions about globalization, some thoughts, some elements or questions you have?
I think Sung Jo has given us an excellent platform for more discussion. He's posed important questions about international institutions and liberalism, neoliberalism, I beg your pardon. And I think he's provided a very good platform for further discussion. Thank you, Sung Jo.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
For all the participants, we are uploading Sung Jo's presentation on the chat. A few seconds left to the end, so you will be able, if you want, to download the Sung Jo's presentation by the end of this coffee talk.
We have another question, Sunjo.
Okay.
We have another question from Sudha Porn from Kmittal Business School from Thailand.
Okay.
About the global business environment. The problem is now we do not know who are our competitor. This word come from my students. How we can predict the competitors?
Well, everyone is competitor. That's what I meant, that there's no war. You know why it's called Wall Street? There was a war in old New York they called New Amsterdam, to protect native Indians, to make it safe. That's why it's called Wall Street, but it's open now, no walls now. Everyone can go, and it's not safe from Indians now. So, yeah, competition can come from everywhere. The issue of anti-globalization movement is rooted in the competitiveness. Everyone competes every other ones. It gives some efficiency, but also give some disadvantages of inequality. But in fact, in everywhere, every countries have this inequality problem. You know which country is the most unequal, biggest inequality country? United States.
Yes.
Yeah. Overall, they seem to be the richest, but inequality is the worst in the world. I saw many homeless camps in Los Angeles, where I lived before. It was very sad to see huge tents of homeless tents in the famous boulevard, the beaches. Yeah. That's United States currently. And many people, famous economists like Stiglitz, or many people talk about this issue, inequality.
Yes, for sure. And I have a question. So I know that this will be a topic that you are going to go deeper in the second part. But I'm talking about globalization in education, and you talk about the globalization of the standards. And my question was, or my need of your comments about this is concerning this point. What are your? Can you give us a few words about what you think concerning globalization and diversity balance concerning education?
I will talk in part 2.
I know, but we need some few words to start thinking about it, and perhaps to give the option to the schools represented today to give us a feedback of some reaction concerning this aspect of the globalization.
Well, I think, as I mentioned briefly, diversity is very important. We should be different. We are not the same people. We are the same human, but not the same people. Like I used to say to my wife, I love because you are different.
Yes.
So diversity.
Yes.
Well, frankly speaking, she doesn't like that very much, but diversity is critical source of human survival. So even in the business education, the best class I had was just before I fully retire. I had 13 students. All of those students are from different countries. And imagine that how great was this class. I'll explain a little bit more about that class. That's what the globalization of class, globalization of education is important.
Okay.
Luba, if you hear
Yes,
me,
yes.
there's another question from
I saw.
Okay, great.
Dear Sunjo, Begona, thanking you for your inspiring talk. And she has another comment and question. Shenghe's story is a must to understand how books do not explain everything to children. Do you know if he reached Spain? My city is the place where the first Columbus caravel arrived and the discovery of America was announced. And the destruction of his incredible fleet. Was it due to the competition of the next emperor to build the Great Wall, to leave his heritage to the world over his brother? Can you comment, please?
Can you repeat?
Okay.
I couldn't catch. Okay, yeah, Begona. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just writing. Sorry. Well, thank you very much
Thank you
for all your inspiring messages and incredible summary of our evolution as human beings. I am really fascinated by the story of Admiral Shenzhen. I don't pronounce it properly, but I have read his books, and I live in a city where the first caravel came from America, the first Columbus Pinta, and the discovery of America was announced. And I read many discussions that apparently the fleet of Shenzhen reached Spain. So it was a curiosity to know if you had any input about that. And the second is if competition, and we were talking about competition between him and the next emperor who built the Great Wall. It was a kind of competition when he destroyed the incredible fleet he had, which was really amazing ships to, we don't have any memory of that incredible adventure, any ship, any. Well, it's not just a curiosity, sorry. Because I love that. So.
As I recollect, Jung He, the Admiral Jung He, reached to the eastern part of Africa, all the way from the China. He had 7 voyages, actually. And more than 10 times of ships, fleets. And the biggest ship he had was, I'll explain more accurately in part 2. Okay. But is far much bigger than any ships in Europe.
Yeah.
With several hundred people on board.
Wow.
So that's the greatest voyage fleet in the world, in the history of the world. The reason that he stopped was not by him. He wanted to go further, although he died during the voyage, 7th voyage. And it is as I said, is not for wealth of nation, wealth of king, the empire. it is for diplomatic reason. And they had many diplomatic the agreements and relations with the countries he visited. Many the Asian countries, South Asian kingdoms, actually, Indian kingdoms, and Persia, and I heard it's Yemen in Arabia, and some countries in Eastern Africa. Only reason was that the emperors at that time thought that that's too expensive because they don't get any gold.
Well, just, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Sorry for the interruption.
So in Asia or in Korea, China, we know Zheng He very much, but it is interesting that not very many people in Europe or Western world know about him. They know only Columbus.
Yeah, that was the reason why I was trying to follow Michael's line of thought, because we are talking about ethnocentrism all the time, and that affects globalization. And we see the world now the way we read it and we learn it as children. Okay. And that's the way I look at the world. I look to the other side through Columbus' eyes, not analyzing what happened before, and that is not fair. So everything starts from the very beginning, the way we look now at the world.
For sure.
Thank you very much, Professor Shenzhen.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, sorry.
Mike, I hope you enjoy. I mean, enjoy life there.
Yes, I am. We have our chickens are still laying eggs. The weather is well. We've had, for a change, a lot of rain over winter, or Jelby as the Indigenous Australians call it, and now we're into spring, Kambarang. Learning your talk of learning from diversity. And now the Indigenous Australians, the Black Australians, are telling us more about how they cared for the land, how they cared for the water, the sea, and how the earth, for them, is like some of the South American practices as well. The earth is Mother Earth, and we need to respect it and love and cherish it. So all of this is, in a way, not opposed to development, but making the European Australians, or those with European ancestry, to think more about what they do with what they have. So it's very important indeed. There have been a couple of large multinational corporations that have shamed themselves. In one case, Rio Tinto destroyed an ancient rock cave that had been inhabited for probably 40,000 years by Black Australians. They knew it was there and they didn't consult properly, but nevertheless they went ahead and destroyed. As a result of the outcry, the international head of Rio resigned, and many members of the board resigned as well. So I think this shows some sort of power from the bottom up, resisting aspects of neoliberalism. So a small group of people using the law were able, and the media were able to bring about such a reaction from a very powerful international company.
Okay.
I think that we have one more question, Professor Sunjo, from Sudaporn.
Yes. Good evening, everyone from Thailand. สวัสดีค่ะ from Thailand ค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ Professor Joo PARK and Michael Wood and everyone. I just would like to have some discussion about the online education in Australia or in the country that you stay now. How about the online education platform, or how about the satisfaction of the parent or the student over there in Australia?
So the porn, on Tuesday next week, Nigel Debussy and I, mainly with Nigel's contribution, will sit down and talk about, among other things, online education. The Australian universities many of them have suffered a reduction of student enrolments because of COVID. In response, some of them, or many of them, did improve their online capacity and were able to offer students the same content, but not always with the same student experience. So, but if you're tuning in if you're listening next Tuesday, Nigel and I will be able to address that. I'm seeing him, or Cecile, on Friday morning to discuss what we can do. So that's not a good answer, but it's a part. You'll hear directly from Nigel what some of the Australian schools have done, more detail than I could give you now.
Yes, it's true that we organize the coffee talks, and the next coffee talks, this one is the first one. It was a discovery session and connected with the main topic of the convention. But it's true that the next coffee talks will be really focused on what you are experiencing as schools, as universities, and go deeper in really concrete solutions and really sharing experiences and students' reaction and staff reaction and solutions we have tasted and you are improving. And we decided to make one coffee talk per week focused on a region, but it's really useful and open to all the regions. And this is the idea is to be focused on the region, to be more concrete and to be more precise. Yes, really to also to have opportunity to go deeper on some special aspects that are facing or in a special way in some regions. Today in the afternoon for Europe, so in 6 hours, we are going to have a coffee talk. It will be recorded also. It's managed by Axel Schumacher from Germany, and this is a coffee talk representing Western Europe. And we will have with us 3 deans from 2 German and 1 Austrian school. And really the purpose is really for them to give us their best practices, what they have learned, and the tools they have tested, and the solution, the different ways their universities decided to find a solution, especially concerning the students' implication. And for sure, in this content, you will find some examples and some ideas and useful for you. For example, I know that some universities in Germany, even at the worst period, keep one day open, keep a window for each class to come by little, to have no students, to have at least for each student to give to each student the opportunity to come to physically to the school once a week, even for a short moment, in very little groups, So they are going to explain this kind of systems they're used, and the way this give them the opportunity to rebuild the organization of their entity.
All right. Thank you very much for your information. I would like to join those events. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Mike.
I just add in the chat for those who maybe did not check it again or yet, the link with the program of the full Eduniversal Coffee Talk sessions organized by theme and with a focus on each of the 9 geographical zones the Eduniversal system is covering. So if you want to check and maybe to book also the your place, you can. Okay, I just added on the chat.
Thank you, Marie-Jo.
You're welcome.
More questions or comments before closing this first coffee talk?
Let's enjoy coffee.
Okay. So enjoy your coffee and more. Thank you very much again, Sunju.
Thank you,
for all your insights.
Thank you so much.
Anita, and all the schools represented today from Thailand, from Spain, from India. Some people just join us right now, but we are going. For you to know, we have recorded this session and we are going to send you, because we have 2 or 3 people just arriving, but don't worry. And we will be sending you the other links to participate to the other sessions. And for anything, any suggestions, if you want us to build some session about one special topic you are really concerned by, don't hesitate. Luba, Marie-Jo, and I are here for that to help. Because yes, Eduniversal, our name and our DNA is really featuring what Sunju was saying, that for us, we are here to find a good balance between globalization and diversity, and help at our level with our tools to keep this diversity, and that's why we are really proud of our name, that is Eduniversal. And for us, universal is really, the meaning is really to respect this difference, this diversity, and to keep it strongly. So take care and see you soon. Best wishes to you, your teams, and your students, and see you very soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.